added foundation. Let's just make this thing not look horrible from the very beginning. Sound good? So let's look at our documentation for foundation. Let's look under general. XY grid, float grid, flex grid. XY grid is new. These are legacy. Let's use the new stuff. A fully reworked new grid system 6.4. Found out about this morning. So Foundation has a grid system for layout where by default it divides the page into 12, a grid of 12. And you can specify a bunch of cells within that grid that take up a certain amount of that space. And you can orient them vertically or horizontally. That's new. But it's pretty easy to work with. So let's use it. Blah, 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 blah. Basics. Okay. We need a div with a class of either grid X or grid Y. We'll use grid X. We want these to be horizontal. They're columns. They go across the page. So in body, let's make a div with a class of grid X. I'm going to take advantage of my Emmet shortcuts here. Dot grid dash X. It automatically assumes div, conveniently. Okay. And, so we could say div class cell for full width. Small 6, what the heck does that mean? Medium 6, large 4. So if I want something to take up, say, the middle 8 out of 12, let's make it 8 cells wide. I will put a div in here with a class of medium dash 8 and a class of cell. Multiple classes are separated by a space inside the attribute value. And what that means, Foundation is a responsive CSS framework. Anybody heard that phrase before? Or responsive design? What's that mean? Yeah, Lily.
It responds quickly to changes in browser window size.
So it responds to changes in browser window size. So you can lay it out differently on small screens than you do on big screens. Yep, exactly. And Foundation gives us some classes to make that easy. So what I'm saying here is for medium screens or larger, take up 8 of the grid's 12 units. Smaller, that part won't apply. So I could say I want small 6 or something. In this case, I want it to be full width on a small screen. I don't have the room to spare maybe. So I just say medium and 8, medium and up, we'll make it 8. Okay, neat. So let's put an H1 in there. Of course it did. Put an H1 inside that div and see how it looks. There we go. There it is. Let's open our dev tools. Inspect this thing. And sure enough, it's not full width, right? 8 out of 12, that looks like about 2/3. I believe it. But I wanted the middle 8. Not the left 8. So if we read a little further, eventually we will see that you can apply an offset that basically adds some left margin or top margin. So something like large offset 2. So in this case, medium offset. Because I want this offset to apply at the same screen sizes as my medium 8 rule. So medium offset, how much? If I want this thing to be centered? 2. 2 on the left, 2 on the right. 8 in the middle, that adds up to 12. Refresh again. There it is. Yay, look how nice. So fancy. Now let's add our form right under the H1. We're going to need a form to enter the names of our Michael Bay flicks. Make a form. I'm going to go ahead and give it an ID of flick form, the dash, so I can tell it apart from other forms that may materialize on the page at a later date, just in case. And then Foundation has some nice stuff to help us make forms look a little better. One of you on your homework made your button kind of hug the side of your input. I like that. Let's see if Foundation gives us a way to do that. Aha. I see forms. Ooh, nice transition. There's a video all about using forms in Foundation. Okay, text inputs. Yeah, we know. We're old pros at this. Yeah. Okay, inline labels and buttons. We want it to work like this. It just hugs the right side. Looks like we need an input group. To attach extra text controls to the left or right, wrap the elements in an input group container. Notice the dot, so it means a div with a class of input group. So let's put that inside our form. Div with a class of input group. And notice, there's a video for just this. Every single feature in Foundation now has a video. So if you are curious about how more of this works, the documentation is super thorough in the first place, but there's also video for all of it. So it says put input group field on the text label. On the text field. So let's make a text field. That's an input. We'll put this class on it. Input type text. Class equals input group field. Cool. Now this is going to be where you put the name of the flick. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a name and stuff. I'm going to go ahead and put line breaks in here so this doesn't run off the edge of the screen, so it's a little easier to see all these things. So name equals flick name. And instead of a label this time, I'm going to use a placeholder. That's a new attribute in HTML5. Placeholder name a flick. Let's see how that looks. See that? Name a flick. Start typing, goes away. Clear it out, comes back. You serious? No, it's good. Okay. Yeah. I don't know how faint that is on the big screen, but you see that? Yay, placeholder. Okay. So we need a button. So it says, input group button, place the button inside this wrapper. So let's look at the example down here. You don't put that class on the button itself. You put a div with that class around the button. So after our input, or after after the input, let's make a div with a class of input group button. And inside there, we'll put our button. And it is going to be a submit type button. Right? I'll label it add flick. Refresh. Okay, there it is, hugging the right side like that, but there's no padding, no border, no background, nothing. That's hideous. Notice on theirs, they put class equals button. So it seems that Foundation, by default, strips the padding, border, and everything else off of a button. But it has a class of button that if you put that on there, maybe it'll make it nice and blue like that. Let's see. Button type equals submit. Class equals button. Oh, beautiful. There's a whole section on buttons in here. Under controls on the left side, button. There's all kinds of stuff you can do with them. Ooh. So large. Color, ooh, colors. Add a primary class, secondary, success, alert, warning. Success button's good here. Let's add the success class here. Separate multiple classes by spaces. Order doesn't matter. Now that's a form. Yes. Beautiful. I think that's worth a commit. The form doesn't do anything, but the form is there. So let's mark our progress. Add flick form. Push it real good.